morning, Sishyas, Gurus, organizers, all the literature lovers. We can move down the music bed a notch. It's perfect to have music in the background, but that's the level. Quarter level music, 3/4 level voice. Thank you. How are all of you today? I can't hear you. Sleepy? Sleepy? No. Awake? That is awake. Awake? Thank you. As per everything that we believe in, before we begin any wonderful function, there are two things we need to do. We're going to do the first of them first, and the next of them next. The first being the lighting of the lamp and invoking God to be in our hearts and in our midst, like he, she, they, whatever pronoun you would use for God is all the time. I would like to call on Dr. Chandramouli, Dr. Sanjeev Chopra, Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan, Shri Srinivasan, and Shri T.N. Murari to come onto stage and light the lamp on this wonderful occasion, please. I request the 5 respected dignitaries to please stay on stage. Please don't go off stage. Please stay on stage with us. I am also going to request that everyone in the audience please rise to your feet. This being Tamil Nadu and this being a school, an educational institution where our tomorrows are taught today and values are instilled in our hearts, we begin the day's proceedings with the Tamil Thai Vartha. I'd like to welcome Mr. Thomas, the music teacher here at Sishya, to lead us in this invocation of our Tamil Thai in Tamil Nadu.
நீராறும் கடலுடுத்த நிலமடந்தை கெழிலொழுகும் சீராறும் வதனமென திகழ் பரத கண்டமதில் தெக்கணமும் அதில் சிறந்த திராவிடனல் திருநாடும் தக்க சிறு பிறை நுதலும் தெரித்தனரும் திலகமுமே அத்திலக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இன்பமுற எத்திசையும் புகழ் மணக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழனங்கே தமிழனங்கே உன் சீரிளமையில் திறம்பியந்து செயல் மறந்து வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Thank you. First off, thank you very much, Sishya School, Sishya OMR, for having us here. As we know, this is the 50th year of the founding of Sishya Schools. And when Shri Thomas wanted to expand minds by expanding campus, Shri Srinivasan promptly proffered the land and joined hands to create this much sought after and prestigious school we are now sitting in. When you teach a man to grow grain, he feeds his family. But when you teach a child, then the child feeds their community, their country, and eventually the world itself. So thank you very much for having us here. And to welcome everyone that has come here, I would like to invite Dr. C. Chandramoli to deliver his welcome address and also talk about Chennai International Center, which in collaboration with Value of Words has made this festival possible.
Our chief guest of the day, Shri Murari, Shri Lakshmi Narayan, our guest, Dr. Sanjeev Chopra, Mr. Srinivasan, the Managing Trustee, Secretary and Correspondent of the school, Mrs. Priyamvada, Trustee of the school, Mr. Robert, the Principal, Mrs. Srividya Saravanan, the Manager of the Administration, Mrs. Ruhi Farhad, English teacher, Intellect Coordinator, distinguished members of the staff, distinguished invitees who have graced this occasion. It's indeed a pleasure to be amongst all of you. Today, as we enter the second day of the Chennai Literature and Arts Festival 2022, organized by the Chennai International Center and the Valley of Words. This is our maiden attempt, and I'm happy to share with you what transpired yesterday before we go on to today's session. Before that, let me also welcome amidst us all the guests who have flown in from different parts of the country and also from outside the country. Put your hands together for all the distinguished guests. So, Nalvaravu, welcome, Swagatam, to the Chennai Literary and Art Festival 2022. As I mentioned earlier, organized by the Chennai International Center in partnership with the Valley of Words. I will leave it to my distinguished colleague, Sanjeev, to talk about the Valley of Words, and I would just restrict myself to this year's festival. Well, we have 4 distinct tracks on which this festival has been organized. The first one was fiction, non-fiction, translation, and writing for young adults. Yesterday, we had the 3 tracks of fiction, non-fiction, and translation at the Kalakshetra, and I'm happy to share with you what transpired there. In the inaugural, we had our own legend, a celebrated author, a playwright, a journalist, and screenwriter. He is from Namma Chennai, Shri T.N. Murari. Put your hands together for him. And we are honored that he has accepted to inaugurate today's function also. Yesterday, we had in the first session, Ms. Peggy Mohan and Thomas Manuel, who discussed their books with Sri Panneerselvam in a session titled The Language and Commerce of the Empire. It was a very well-received discussion, and they took us through the contours of one on the language, linguistics, and on the other side, opium, which fueled the commerce between the colonial empire and China, and it was a fascinating session. In the second session, we had the privilege to hear Justice Prabha Sridevan and Sri T.M. Yesudasan, who discussed the topic Windows Across the Horizon, saluting the tradition of translation. And with them in conversation were Ms. Hem Mahesh and Peer Muhammad Aziz, and they really told us how a writer who is translating from another language, the difficulties, the travails that they go through, because often a translator is not given the same amount of respect as the original author. But they brought to us the fact that, look, translation is as difficult as creating the original book. And that was a fascinating experience to listen to. The next session was a powerful session by 2 women writers, Mrs. Nandini Sengupta and Ms. Koral Das Gupta, who talked to us about the queens across ages, and they brought out Kunti and Durgavati. they really were very powerful and impressed everyone. And on the panel with them were Ms. Vidya Singh and Pradeep Chakravarti, who is an eminent writer. Both of them are eminent people who joined the panel and really enriched the entire discussion. In the last session yesterday was our own Mr. Sanjeev Chopra, who took us on a helicopter ride across decades and brought to us the entire history of modern India since independence, how different states were formed, what were the different pulls and pressures, aspirations and ambitions that went into the making of the states. And he left us with the thought that India is still in the making. It's alive, it's growing, and the history is ever evolving. In conversation with him was an eminent diplomat, Mr. Tirumurthy, and I had also joined him in that session. Now today, let's come to today. Today here in Shishya, we are having the vertical on writing for young adults. Now this is a genre which, many festivals really do not celebrate, and I think it's a great privilege to partner with WOW that today we are celebrating this genre of young adult writing, and we have very eminent authors, and all these authors who have featured in our festival, let me tell you, they are shortlisted by the jury of the Valley of Words, and they have been selected out of hundreds of books which were submitted for appraisal. So put your hands together for our authors of today before I take up one by one. We have 4 authors, Vibha Batra and her book, Pinku Shergill, Pastry Chef. This will be discussed with Richa Tilokani. Next we have Neha Sinha, who will discuss a book, Wild and Willful, with your own Nusrat Tunisa Begum. And lastly, and after that would be Archana Sarath, who will discuss her book, Tales from the History of Mathematics, with Mamati here. And finally, we have Mamati Chari, who will discuss her book, The Makings of Heroes, The Adventures of Zoe and Scruffy, with all of you. So please put your hands together once more for all of them, ladies and gentlemen and children. We hope to make this festival an essential part of the annual social calendar of Chennai. So please do continue to support us and help us grow from strength to strength. Thank you, Vanakkam, and please enjoy the day. Thank you.
Now, I must tell you something about Dr. Chandramouli. He is an author himself, with very many books that he's written on temples, art and crafts, world heritage sites of Tamil Nadu. He's also contributed to the book Madras, a 400-year record of the first city of modern India. I mean, we are the first city of modern India. And the gentleman who is an author and who has spoken so wonderfully and eloquently to us was also an IPS officer. Now, this has to change your perspective of what police people are. He continued on in the service of the government as an IAS officer, and he won the President's Awards for Census in the years 2001 and 10. The much accomplished gentleman is the Managing Director of the Chennai International Center, and it's a pleasure to be here by your invite. Thank you. Our next speaker is also an IAS officer, who's held very many key positions. He's got a PhD in management. He's got degrees in law, history, and literature. So imagine if anybody is complaining about having too much work in school, imagine how much he has studied. Yeah? 3 degrees and a PhD. He is a fellow of many international institutions and he's an international speaker on many subjects. He's also an author whose book we discussed yesterday, like Dr. Chandramouli would have mentioned. He's the founder of Value of Words Foundation, which every year, now in its 6th year, conducts the Value of Words Lit Fest, which is how this very niche and exclusive festival that curates its authors and moderators very stringently and very aptly has come here to us. Let's welcome Dr. Sanjeev Chopra to speak to us.
Thank you, Mamata. Good morning, friends. Vanakkam. And it's very nice to be in Chennai. It's a big contrast from Dehradun. What I told Chandramouli was that I've enjoyed a cold water bath after many weeks. And it's a real pleasure because Dehradun is not exactly freezing, but it's cold. So it's very nice to have a session of WOW in Chennai in this period. We have with us today Mr. Lakshmi Narayan. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. It's a real privilege and an honor for us that you could spare your time. Mr. and Mrs. Murari, because nothing about Tim is complete unless we acknowledge the great role which Maureen has played in his life. Thank you, sir, for being with us yesterday and for being with us today. We are very honored that Ms. Priyam Vadha is with us, Mr. Srinivasan R., the Managing Trustee, Secretary, Correspondent, and our host for this event. Thank you very much, sir, for your presence here. Principal Roberts, because we know that a school, the fulcrum of a school is the principal, and but for Mr. Roberts' presence, we wouldn't have seen this festival flourish the way it is doing. I've had several interactions with Sri Vidya. We've been in touch with her on the Google. So thank you for being here, Miss Ruhi Farhat, the English teacher, and all the staff members and our authors who are here today. Vibha Batra, thank you for being here. Neha is here. Peggy Mohan, she was with us yesterday. She's written an excellent book on languages of India and how languages evolve. So thank you for joining us. And of course, Archana Sarat, I think she's come or she may be on her way. And of course, Mamata Chari is here. So friends, let me tell you a little bit about the Value of Words. The name was given by a trustee of the Value of Words, Mr. Kishore Menon, who's sitting here quietly in the second row. A round of applause for him because, you see, he suggested to us that you must have a name which can float anywhere, which can go anywhere. So, metaphorically speaking, a festival which is based in a city has to be based in a city, but with Value of Words, the words travel anywhere. And you can have a valley anywhere. And when you put the words and the valley together, it's an absolutely wonderful interaction. So that's what we do. So we celebrate the word in all its genre, in all the various forms of the word, because the play is also a word, puppetry is also a word. Everything that is creative is akshar, and akshar is the imperishable, the permanent, the something which is not instant. So the word is absolutely great and it's fascinating. So that's why we are fascinated with words and we celebrate the word in all its forms, in all its formats. And that's why we believe that all words that have ever been spoken, that have ever been taught, leave a great impression on civilization and on the minds of all of us. As Chandramouli had mentioned, you see, typically literature festivals do a lot of things together, so they do many things. But what we in the Value of Words do is that we try to curate our sessions along certain themes and along certain verticals. We have 8 verticals, and those verticals include, best of fiction, in English and Hindi, non-fiction in these languages, and translations from the Bhashas of Bharat. And we have 22 languages in our country. 17 of them are on our currency note. So these 22 languages, so we celebrate translations from these languages. And yesterday in the sessions on translations, it became very clear that it's so important to be able to get into another culture, to get into another life, to get into another story. And that makes it so easy for us to transform ourselves, to take ourselves to yet another world. And that's what books do, that's what books in translation do. And then we have this vertical on young adult writing. And I'm so glad that, this is a genre which in our times was not really very well developed. So now we have a whole series of authors who write for children, for young adults in that age group. And Chandramouli and I and all of us grew up in a generation where we only read Kim, or we read Enid Blytons or Hardy Boys. The context was never India. The context was never the world around us. So some of the plays that you're going to see today and the sort of things which our young authors are writing will actually show you how we relate to the world. And all literature is about connection. All literature is about connecting the dots. So that's the next vertical. And we also have a vertical for very young children. We call that writings for kids. And the best part about writing for kids and writing for young adults is the enactments which the school children do. Their involvement with the story, their involvement with the play is what makes it very wonderful, very interactive, and very beautiful. One of the themes which Value of Words has is the need and the importance and the salience of an intergenerational connect. What is happening these days is that we who are in our 60s talk to people in our 60s and 50s. Those who are in their 40s, they think we are too old. Those who are in the 30s think that there's a generation gap. Those in the 20s don't even want to look at us. And as when Chandramouli and I were discussing, our kids sometimes think that, we won't even understand what they don't even want to make an effort. So we are trying to reach out. We're trying to connect. We're trying to talk, because it's through conversations. It's through dialogues. It's through these things that, we hope to make the world a place where differences will be celebrated, but differences will not lead to conflict. Differences and diversity should lead to celebrations. They should not lead to conflict. So that's what we believe in the value of words. There are also two key words which I want to share with the younger, with the young adults here. One is that we all are very happy speaking about ourselves. We appreciate excellence in ourselves. It's very important to appreciate excellence around us, to appreciate excellence in others. And every day we notice that there's so many excellent things that are happening. While walking today, I was noticing that the staff here are thoroughly, they're doing the cleaning work of this campus so meticulously, so beautifully. So it's so wonderful. So while we must, we always acknowledge the work done by big leaders, by big people, but the work which is done by the everyday person in our lives, those are the things that have to be appreciated. The artwork, the rangoli, the music, everything around us. So it's a celebration of the word, it's a celebration of creativity, it's a celebration of togetherness. So thank you very much, CIC. Thank you very much, Shishya School, for having us here. And we hope that the tradition will continue. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Tamil Nadu, Jai Bharat.
Fair? What he said was fair, right? We need conversation. And we need conversation that you are interested in. The young adults are interested in. But is that enough? Yes? No? Maybe? I want to hear from the students. No? We need more? Yeah, we need more. We need to hear your voices louder. And as authors, we need to create books for young adults, which would be enjoyed by adults too. And do you know why? Because children's literature should be far superior to adult literature. I'm going to come back to you and ask you why I think, okay, I can't say why I think, why as a concept it should be. We will talk this off stage, but I'm throwing it out there. Children's literature should be far superior to adult literature, and this is a thought for the young adults out there. Thank you, Dr. Chopra. Next, I would like to call upon the co-founder of Cognizant Technologies, who adores children and whose little granddaughter leads him around by his nose right now, who's enjoying being a grandfather, who's a man who enjoys literature and reading and words. He's also a trustee of the Chennai International Center. Let's put our hands together for Sri Lakshmi Narayan.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that introduction. Distinguished audience here, the even more distinguished children of Shishya School here. I'm so happy to see so many children participating in this event. So I'm going to go a little off the script and talk to the children first and then come back to my script. As I was coming in, I was talking to a few students. A couple of them were looking at the book and reading something. One of them said his favorite subject is physics. The other one said chemistry. So I asked them, have you read some novels? They looked at each other. So I didn't pursue further. I knew how busy the school is keeping them with science education, etc. But then, I kept thinking about as I was coming here, I was thinking about the poster for today. Very colorful poster. Okay. Colors with a hot air balloon, with music wafting through. So it was very, very energizing and inspiring, invigorating as you come in the morning to the school. I'm a technology person. I like computers. I like artificial intelligence. I was just thinking, in this world, when we have computers creating art, all of you have heard of digital art? Yeah, a few heads nodding there. Have you heard of digital poems? Poems being written by computers? There's one person who said poems are written and it's scarily good. That's how good computers are getting. Would computers generate stories? Can they write literature? The answer is yes. They are actually doing it. But not all by themselves, but assisted by people, assisted by young minds like you. So much so that in Japan, in the year, I think 2017 or 2018, I was just reading up in the last 2 days, there's a book competition where authors are celebrated. And in the year 2018, they started including books authored by computers as well for the competition. How interesting is that? And the conclusion that they came to is, it is such a powerful aid for the imagination of people to narrate their stories that it would very soon become mainstream. It would become truly mainstream where individuals and computers collaborate to create masterpieces that will be celebrated all over the world. And that's the world that young adults are entering. Such a fascinating world, such a challenging world, such an invigorating world. Welcome to this program. I hope you will find this program useful. Now let me get to the script and talk about today's program and a little bit about the Chennai International Center. CIC is delighted to bring to you the Chennai Literature and Arts Festival 2022. The CIC is organizing this festival in partnership with the Valley of Words. Dr. Sanjeev Chopra talked about it, which is an open access and free literature and arts festival that brings together readers, writers, critics, and listeners from the world of fiction, non-fiction, and poetry. This is being organized for the first time, and I understand that the response yesterday was very good in Kalakshetra. And I can see that there are a lot of enthusiastic minds here for today's program. And such a lovely campus, such a beautiful school. I'm deeply honored to be here. I must share a couple of anecdotes about this school also, Shishya School. My son-in-law, Krishna Srikanth, is the current president of the Alumni Association, very active Alumni Association. He enjoys being here. He studies in this school. And one of the students here, how I came to know about the Sishya school during the initial days was, this is almost 6 or 7 years back. I knew about the school. I brought this kid. This kid loves looking at cars. I had a new car. So I brought him, showed him the car. See, this is my new car. He looked at the number plate. It read 8461 as the number. Immediately he said, prime number. I said, wow, this is, I mean, I would never have thought of that. It's a young mind that thinks about those numbers, and I had to go back to the computer and check whether it was really true. Such is the caliber of students from this school. Thank you very much for hosting CIC here. I'll just say a little bit about Chennai International Center, because for the adults here, we would certainly love them to be part of this center as we develop. CIC is a not-for-profit organization formed to promote exchange of information and ideas in the fields of education, business, finance, economics, arts, commerce, literature, law, politics, administration, everything. Very, very inclusive. We call it the intellectual spa in Chennai. Founded in 2016, it was conceived by some of Chennai's accomplished industrialists and professionals with an objective of creating an intellectual hub for the city's intelligentsia to meet, share, discuss, and evolve transformational ideas. CIC aspires to be a spa for the mind and soul. The center regularly invites accomplished Indian and global personalities to share experiences and vision in their respective area of expertise. Since its inception in 2016, the CIC has hosted more than 150 events. Most of our events happen in the auditorium in the Madras School of Economics. And I'm also, as a trustee, very happy to share with you now that we have embarked on an ambitious effort to provide Chennai with an iconic center that would host such events and serve the people of Chennai in a more comprehensive manner. Land for this has already been obtained in the heart of the city, and we will start construction very soon. I fondly hope that future festivals like this will happen in those premises. The land has been acquired in De Monte Colony in Mylapore. Every time I mention that name, De Monte Colony, people say, oh, that's a scary area. There have been movies about that place. So we are going to drive all the ghosts out of that place and make it an intellectual spa. All the students will be welcome there. I'll stop here and welcome all the guests who have come to participate, and I hope the young adults here will enjoy the deliberations of today. Let the creative juices flow, and hope some of them will write someday soon in addition to whatever they are pursuing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Shri Lakshminarayanan. And it's ignorance that brings about fear, and intellect drives out ignorance, and therefore fear and darkness. May the new structure in Del Monte flourish and grow and spread its light all around. Congratulations. I would like to invite Shri Srinivasan onto stage, please. Yes, please do join us. Apart from his service in the capacity of correspondent here, he also manages the College of Pharmacology. And for me, most importantly, his daughter, whom you know as a trustee of the school, Priyamvada, is also my classmate from school. So for me, it's a double pleasure to be here. Hi, Priyamvada. Sir, I would request you, Shri Srinivasan, I'm going to request you to address this gathering, please.
I was not prepared. I thank Chennai International Center, Dr. Chandramouli and his trustees for giving us an opportunity to Shishya OMR School to host this literature festival in our school this year. And I request Mr. Sanjay Chopra to make it an annual event, and we'll host it. And management, we firmly believe in investing not only in academics, but also see how best we can develop the children's mental health and social life. So, in this moment when we are facing several challenges, post-COVID shutdown and lockdowns, and there is a big challenge for the school to handle the children with their change in behavioral patterns. So we have started conducting series of motivational lectures to help them to focus on their studies and future dreams. So this is one such attempt, and thank you, Dr. Chandramouli, for giving this opportunity. I must also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Salim Thomas and Mrs. Omna Thomas, who are the architects and mentors of our school. Shishya Adyar, we are here today with their guidance, and we are committed to replicate their values and see how best we can probably make a difference in the education in our school, aligning to Shishya Adyar. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, uncle. I have to call you both now. Our chief guest today. Yesterday, the session with him was titled The Marathon Writer. We call him the living legend. Primarily because I'm just going to read out a list of all the books he's written. And then if you're not breathless at the end of it, I'll be surprised. It's kind of going to be an impossibility. Yeah? But I'm going to start with the young adults' work first. He's a prolific writer. He's written in many, many, many genres. He's written across media. He's written for stage. He's written for newspapers. He's written novels. He's written fiction. He's written non-fiction, memoirs, or semi-biographical accounts. I mean, he's written so much. And we celebrated him yesterday, and we're celebrating him again today as our chief guest here. He's written Children of the Enchanted Jungle, Axis Trilogy, Axis and the Magic Medallions, Axis and the Undersea Kingdom, Axis and the Parallel Universe, Empress of the Taj, In Search of Mumtaz Mahal, My Temporary Son, An Orphan's Journey, Limping to the Center of the World, A Pilgrimage to Mount Kailash, Going Home, A Black Family Returns South, The New Savages, Children of the Liverpool Streets, The Marriage, The Oblivion Tapes, Lovers Are Not People, The Shooter, Field of Honor, which is semi-biographical, Taj, a novel on Mughal India, translated into 25 languages, Imperial Agent, a sequel to Kipling's Skim, The Last Victory, Part 2 of Imperial Agent, Enduring Affairs, Four Steps from Paradise, which is semi-biographical again, The Arrangements of Love, The Small House, The Taliban Cricket Club, which was translated into 9 languages, his latest work, Chanakya Returns, and his plays, Enter Queen Lear. Who remembers King Lear? Did you have King Lear in your English class? Yes? Otherwise, I'll ask Ms. Ruhi here. Huh? Okay. Then you must pick up Shakespeare's King Lear after you read chief guest Enter Queen Lear. The Square Circle, which is actually adapted and directed as a play by him, which was also seen by us as an award-winning movie, Daira. Continuing on his place, Killing Time, The Attempted Assassination of Salman Rushdie, Lovers Are Not People, The Inquisitor, Hey Hero, and coming to film and television, other than Daira, which was voted one of the 10 best films of 1997 by Time magazine, The Only Thing, Only in America, which was a TV documentary in 3 parts, and of course, like I told you, his latest novel is Chanakya Returns, plus his UK publishers reissued his novels Taj, The Imperial Agent, and The Last Victory online as well as in print on demand. Now tell me, don't you want to meet this marathon writer? It is with greatest pleasure that I would like to invite Sri T. N. Murari to speak to all of us.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be here and to be among such distinguished people, and most importantly, to be able to talk to children like you. I remember once I was a child, but I never had this opportunity to meet other writers or people like that. But as a writer, after listening to Mr. Lakshmi Narayan, I think I'm going to be out of work because AI is going to take over my job. So I'm hoping Mr. Narayan will rethink and give me a job when this happens. When I was growing up, like you guys, I didn't have much chance to read children's books. I did read a lot because in those days there was no computers or anything like that, or phones. But most of the writers were English, people like Kipling, Enid Blyton. So as a child, I grew up just reading children's books written by Europeans. And it does stimulate imagination slightly, but the only alternative I had, there was a magazine called Chandramama, which did tell stories of India, and mainly mythological stories. And it was only later on, of course, that totally interrupted my train of thought. So I need AI again to help me to get through this one. As you know, unlike them, I'm not a fluent speaker. I'm a writer, out to be out of a job. But, however, at some point in my career, I was inspired by a child to write for children. I hadn't up to that time because I didn't have children. And I spent most of my life either living in England or America and writing adult novels, until a young child, an orphan, inspired me to try and write a story for him. Not that he could read it, but at least it was something that challenged me to be able to write for him as a child and for me as a child. So I wanted to write a story really for me as a child, growing up, whether in India or anywhere else in the world, the kind of stories I would have liked to have written or read when I was a child. So when writers write for children, they're really writing for themselves or reinventing their childhood. One of the first ones I did was The Children of the Enchanted Jungle. Now, through my father, I spent a lot of time in rural countryside and in jungles because he worked in the government department that dealt with those things. So I traveled a lot through with him. But I couldn't figure out how to tell the story. And it was just by chance I happened to be in another country, Brazil, and somebody was telling me about children living in the jungle who were orphaned, and they would put together an act on the road as if an accident had taken place. So the people stopped and they immediately robbed them of money and disappeared back in the jungle. Now I thought that was very inventive of those kids who have been orphaned living in the jungle and doing something like that. So that is what inspired me to write Children of the Enchanted Jungle. I didn't set it in Brazil, I set it in India with Indian children who've been orphaned, who've been thrown out of their homes for some reason or other, maybe because they're disabled. So I was trying to write for the child in me if I was living in a jungle and having interaction with the wonderful nature around me at that time, and how I did have a further message in that novel, is that this beautiful paradise for these kids, living among tigers, elephants, snakes, in which they had become part of that jungle, is suddenly threatened by what is happening every day in India, by our advanced so-called civilization that we got to take over the jungles to dig it up for coal, for aluminum, to build houses, to put new highways through. And this is where, as we know today, man-animal conflicts occur. And so in this pristine, beautiful jungle, I created the threat of outsiders coming in to take over the jungle. But what they don't know is that the kids are protected by space, from power from outer space. And anyhow, that's part of the story. But in trying to tell these stories to children's stories, I also wanted to, because in my other books, Axis novels, which are trilogy, my main character, again, is an Indian boy who is been adopted by someone in America, and he and 5 other kids from various parts of the world have to stop an evil force. Now here again, it is a big adventure story, but I was also trying, if young kids read the books, read the novels, that there's an underlying message of what is happening to our world. And these kids have to try and set things right in this dramatic, climatic disaster coming upon us. So we have to depend on the children, and we are responsible for what's happened, and we're laying it all on you guys to stop what we have already started, and which is climate change. We talk a lot about it, but nobody does it. So when I'm writing children's books, I haven't written any since, I have to add, but I try and give the children an adventure story that they want to read, but I also try and add some other part of the real world they have to face, the changes that occur around, and how they have to deal with it in their adventures. And admittedly, I'm trying to, at the same time, warn the children who are reading my books, if they're reading them. I know, I quite agree with what he says. You don't have the time to read novels because you get such pressures on you as kids. Because when I was growing up, I didn't have that kind of pressure because I wasn't as smart as you guys. I know probably many of you have read the Harry Potter novels and other novels, and I'm glad to see now that more and more Indians are writing children's stories rather than having us or any child having to read only Harry Potters, which are set in a different world, in a different culture, in a different environment. And that the more that Indian writers start writing not just mythology, but writing for children or young adults, wonderful adventure stories, which entertain, but at the same time, if you're writing these books, you have to give an underlying message about the real world and how we must try, or the child should try, or the children should try, and overcome the problems that we have created through this world of fiction to change the world we're living in, and not this locomotive crash that is about to occur, and I'm told in the next 50 years. What I noticed here is that it's mainly the women writers here. And I'm aware that there is equally talented. I have a very talented writer friend of mine, Anushka, who writes beautiful, funny stories. But I was hoping that there'd be some more men or males writing children's stories as well, rather than mainly women writers writing stories, because I think that's a genre that's equally fascinating for men, to try and recall their childhoods and to tell their stories, as well as, fantastically well, women telling the stories. So I'm hoping this session today will be both entertaining and amusing for you, and that maybe someone out here will start writing stories rather than becoming engineers, doctors, or AIs and doing all that kind of things. I know it's not promising with what's going to happen, but I'd still like you guys to try and write stories that we can get published about your own world, but also bringing up your imagination to tell fantastic stories, not just from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata. There are new Ramayanas and Mahabharatas among you all, stories that you know, stories of your family, the stories of your own imagination. So I'm hoping somehow during listening to these other writers that inspires a few of you to try your own hand at writing stories, to entertain yourselves, to entertain your friends, and to entertain adults who also love to read stories. So I'd like to thank you very much for having me here to talk about writing. And despite the warnings, it's still a worthwhile profession. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shri Murari, and my sincere apologies for interrupting you. I hope I did not throw you off your stride. I am going to blame them for it, for nudging me here. I would like to invite Srimati Omna Thomas and Srimati Priyamvada onto stage, please, to present our chief guest and trustee CIC with bouquets of our love and affection for being here with us today. Can I have Mrs. Omna Thomas and Mrs. Priyamvada on stage, please? Mrs. Omna, could you please present Shri Murari with a bouquet from us? As the students are aware, but I would like to let the rest of everyone here know, Mrs. Omna Thomas and her husband, Dr. Salim Thomas, have also been architects and supporters of Shishya School. When I say architects, I mean in building up the institution. So thank you very much. We are very happy you could join us here today. Ms. Priyamvada, I would request you to present Sri Lakshmi Narayan with a bouquet from us. Thank you. Thank you, our esteemed dignitaries, chief guests, and everybody here on stage with us. I would request you to kindly... Yes, these are very special gifts from CIC and Value of Words. Matter for the mind, the flowers were for the soul. Thank you.